I'm driving to work one day, and I hit the stoplight across from my building. And as the light turns red, I watch a woman cross the street in front of my car, and she caught my attention because she was kind of shuffling along really weirdly. So I looked down at her feet, and she had these giant white tube socks shoved into these little flimsy flip-flops. So the light turns green, and I just think, well, no wonder she's walking weird. And I hang the right into my building just as I hear someone say, "Give her your shoes." Hey, everybody, my name is Alli Patterson. I'm a pastor here at Crossroads, if you don't know me. And I'm doing better today because the Buckeyes looked like a real football team last night. So I'm feeling good. I will finish my story as part of our conversation about the next element of a thriving life, and that is how to share your stuff. We have the opportunity to step into a life that thrives on deeper levels when we learn to share our personal resources. What do I mean by personal resources? So this, I consider things that you have uniquely at your fingertips right now. Stuff that you get to decide today what to do with. That's things like, of course, the money in your wallet and your bank account. It's also your house, your car, your clothing, your food, all of your physical stuff, as well as intangible things. Things that you might uniquely possess. Wisdom from your life experiences, unique skills or talents, just stuff that's in you. All of that is what I'm talking about today. I call that your personal resources. So I just want you to kind of rifle through and make your pile as we talk. Just have that in your mind. But as soon as we begin this conversation, we hit a wall. We hit a problem immediately. The problem is we as human beings do not come out of the womb wired for deep natural generosity. I'll grant you there's a spectrum. However, I have parented a decade of toddlers. So I have firsthand evidence of what we do when we first learn that we've got stuff. Here's what happens. Toddlers like to gather their stuff. They like to bring it close to them. They don't really even want to play with other toddlers. They definitely don't want to play with you. And so they gather their things, and they don't want you to touch them. They want to be left alone with their stuff. And if you look like you might come near, they pull it in, and they yell, "Mine, mine." I had a toddler moment that I'm not particularly proud of myself. My inner toddler sort of came out. We have a sweet group of kids that play together on our street, and they sort of roam as a herd from house to house. And they landed at my kitchen counter one day and said to me, "Mrs. Patterson, we're super hungry. Can we have some pretzels?" And there's like 8 or 10 of them. And so I looked in their sweet little faces, and in my head I'm thinking, beat it, kids. These pretzels are mine. I had to fight through Sam's Club for these. These are going in lunch boxes for the next 2 weeks, and you animals are about to eat them in the next 2 minutes. You go home and eat your own roll gold. Nice, right? You wish you lived on my street. So I'm not proud of that, but that's the thing that went through my head as I realized this is going to cost me something. And it's more than the price of the pretzels. These kiddos are about to cost me a trip to the store. They're about to cost me my lunchbox plan that I work hard. I'm a mom of 4. I got to have a plan. I can't just wake up and think, what's for lunch today? So that it was going to cost me something to feed these kids. And I did it begrudgingly. As we picture our pile of stuff, I know that there are areas of your personal resources where you like to pile things up and bring it in close. And if somebody comes near it, you might not say it out loud, but in your head you're thinking, mine, mine. As we look at that stuff today, I want you to just consider for one moment that you're only in step 1 of a thriving life. When you have your stuff, that's good, but it's actually in the giving out of your stuff that you find the real thriving life that we're after. So we have those things for a reason. We have our money because we want to do things with it. We have our physical stuff because we like it, we enjoy it, we possess it because it's good for us. But what we're really after with that stuff is life. And it's only in the outward flow of those resources that is where thriving life is hiding. I know that some of us can manage some of the time to be generous with our stuff, but if you ever find a life that's truly has an outward, continuous flow, that person is thriving and they're standing on a decision that they've made. They're standing on a decision about ownership. Whose stuff is this really? Psalm 24:1 suggests something about ownership. It says, "The earth is the Lord and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." People who thrive, who have this constant flow of in and out and in and out in all the areas where they possess things, they've made a decision that actually their stuff isn't their stuff, it's God's stuff. And He gives it to them, and they pass it on, and they trust Him to keep the flow moving. We actually see this in the life of Jesus. He walked the last few years of His life. He spent a lot of time with the same 12 guys, and they traveled together, they worked together, and we can see evidence all through the accounts of His life in the Bible that they shared their stuff. Traveling, things they needed when they traveled, food, clothing, even money. We have record of that. And then also, He shared some amazing stuff also. He shared His inner resources, His teaching, His wisdom, His understanding of God, His understanding of things that were going to happen in the future. And He passed that along to these guys. And He was summarizing this all, like all the stuff that He had given them. He was kind of reminding them of that right before He sent them out to do some work. And in Matthew 10:8, He sort of puts a summary statement at the end. And He says, "Now freely you've received from me, now freely give." And it's in the free flowing of our stuff that we discover this is thriving life. And it's in the outflow that we get to be part of God's plan. He talks about this plan in 1 Peter 4:10. It says this, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." So let me make that plain. God has given you a pile of stuff. And as you push it outward, it gets transformed, and you get transformed into an agent of the grace of God. Your stuff and you are God's plan to push His grace into every part of this earth. And His grace takes on so many forms. As many people as are with us today in our community, that's how many forms there are of God's grace. There are kids to be mentored. There are people who need dressed. There are countries to be healed. There are all kinds of ways that God wants His wisdom and His teaching to reach people. Grace comes in so many different forms. And His plan is you and your stuff will do it. Let me tell you about a time when I saw this in action. This video that you're watching happened just after Hurricane Harvey hit the Houston area. And a friend of mine posted this, and I thought, that's a beautiful picture of this. These are just people with boats. That's what's going on here. They had a thing. The thing was theirs. You get a boat because you want to water ski and be on the water and enjoy it, and it's yours, and that's awesome. And they just took their thing, and they went there. And when they showed up, what do you think it felt like? A guy in a boat? No. It felt like the grace of God on the scene. It felt like His love, His help, His protection, His rescue of people, their loved ones, their babies, their dogs, the last thing they could rescue from their drowning house. Those boats were transformed into the grace of God. That's what we get to do with our stuff. And we can only do it when we start pushing it outward. So let me tell you what happened with my shoes. So this voice that I hear say, "Give her your shoes," I pretty quickly figure out no one's yelling at me from the street. This, I think, is the voice of God. It's all I could think. Give her your shoes. It was like a bumper sticker in my head. And I'm turning into the parking lot, and my first thought was, what? Give her my shoes? And I look over and notice I've brought my brand new running shoes to work with me that day. They're sitting on the seat next to me because my plan was to take a run at lunchtime. I never do that. I've probably brought extra shoes to work with me 2 times in 6 years. And there they were. And as soon as I realized it was God, I started fighting with Him. My inner toddler came out, and I went, "Wait, No, these aren't ready for Goodwill. I just bought these. These are my new cool, bouncy running shoes. I'm not ready to give these away. Look how cool they are. I like my shoes. And also, I'm trying to stay in shape here. I'm going to take a run at lunch. And not to mention how. What am I going to do? I'm going to give my shoes to this lady? What? And so I have my little tantrum with God, but I pull up to my parking place, and I go, I can't do it. I can't pull in here. I know what's happening. I'm staring down a decision. I've got to make a choice here. Am I going to just be somebody that goes, I would like to be a generous person? And I think, oh, it's more blessed to give than to receive, and I say that at Christmas. Or am I going to actually give this woman my shoes? And I was like, okay, you win. I give her my shoes. I hear you, God. Okay, so here's the deal, God. I'm going to drive around the back of the building, and if you give me access to this woman again, I'll give her my shoes. So I turn the corner around the back of the building, and you know she was there. Come on. You know she was standing right there. So I drive down, and sure enough, she was on the sidewalk, way at the end, but right in the middle of the back driveway to my building. And I was like, okay, guess we're doing this thing. So I pull up, and I roll down my window. And I introduced myself, and I started to explain why I had noticed her. And I looked over at my shoes, and I picked them up, and I said to her, do you need some shoes? And she just nodded her head, and her eyes filled with tears. And I said, I have shoes for you. Here you go. And I passed the shoes through my window, and we talked for another minute. And as I drove away, I actually watched her put them on in my rearview mirror. And I felt alive. I thought, yeah, guess what I got to do today? I got to see how my God cares for somebody. Let's be honest, those shoes were never mine. I just had the money and the time to go to the store for them. Those were always her shoes. Always. And as I handed them over, I thought, now those shoes, they just became the grace of God for that woman. She didn't know she was going to get shoes that day. God took care of her, and he did it through my stuff. And after I threw my little fit about it, I wanted to kick myself and go, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Whatever life I thought I was going to get out of those running shoes, I just bought myself with that $80 so much more than I could have possibly imagined. And I promise you, whatever you're stockpiling, whatever resource you won't let go of, if you will just release it, thriving life is waiting for you on the other side. So do it. Give. Become an agent of God's grace with your stuff, because that is how you thrive. Thank you.